And good morning to you guys. It's a nice day outside, 9:42 on this Tuesday, the 15th day of August. I'm wave meteorologist Brian Goode. Welcome to the blog. It's nice to not to have to do storm talk or an alert day update. Finally, some nice weather moving into wave country. Doesn't mean we're totally out of the rain chance zone, unfortunately. There is still a chance to get some rain today, but it's not a huge ordeal, so make sure I stress that. Cool weather certainly in play for the next, I would say, 36 to 48 hours. But then the reality kicks back in when it comes to summer heat. We're going to talk about that. And today it's a bit of a special day today. We're going to actually look at some of the long-term data because I haven't had a chance to discuss that with you guys very much because it has been so busy for the last 6 weeks here in the Wave Country and the Ohio Valley in general. Looking at the trends that are starting to show up now for the upcoming autumn season and the signals and how things right now are starting to look for Wave Country as we head all the way through September, October, and even parts of November. Not ready to do the winter outlook yet. I am looking at some of the stuff. I usually don't start that until about the first week of September. I start looking at the data at that point. But autumn, we got to solve that first, right? So if you have any questions or comments, you can always do so on our social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, and, of course, on YouTube as well. Nice to see a lot of you on YouTube these days, so I appreciate that. So let's dive into the current setup, and then we'll get into all the fun stuff coming up here in just a second. We'll start with the latest look at the satellite. Yep, clouds rolling right back into Wave Country today. It is going to be mostly cloudy today. It's not going to be a full-on beautiful blue sky setup. But because of the clouds, the thermometer, along with that cooler wind flow, it really is not going to have a chance to warm much at all today compared to what you would think for August standards. Normally, we would talk about highs into the upper 80s this time of the year. Instead, we're looking at maybe mid-upper 70s, upper 70s being Louisville, mid-70s for a lot of you away from the city limits. But rain chances we're watching today, we're on the backside now of this large system, rather large, what we call mid-latitude cyclone to be this far south in mid-August, moving across the Ohio Valley. Led to the showers and at least the storm threat just because of the wind fields with it. But we were lucky enough to keep the fuel in check. We had some fuel, and we did have some storms that were gusty up to about 50 miles per hour, but 58 is the limit for warning. So we didn't get to that level, thankfully. But overall, we got lucky on that. And we got some beneficial rain still. And that's important, too, because the amount of rain we're getting here as of late is keeping everything green. And as we get into this upcoming heat wave, that will alter some of the numbers. You're going to see some forecasts that could go. Some of the modeling's going, especially GFS, is like 104 for high temperature. It's too high. The model is not really capturing the idea of a more green environment. We know that as meteorologists working and growing up here, that typically cuts down on our numbers. So that's the reason why we're kind of on the lower end of some of the numbers that the data is coming in showing. It's not too far from it because it is going to be very hot, but it's not to at least the levels that will really get your attention. So that's good. But that's coming up more so, I'd say, toward the end of the weekend and next week. We're going to be slowly putting our toes in the water into that heat wave, which is good. But today, there will be a shower chance coming our way as we into this afternoon as that little cinnamon roll is spinning across areas of Kokomo, Indiana, dropping down. Tawana Andrews laughing at, what's wrong with my cinnamon roll?
No, I just never thought of it that way.
I'm hungry, Tawana.
I'm sorry.
Tawana's hanging out with me today. She said, I'm just going to chill out with you for a while. You sure you don't want to jump on here?
No,
okay. All right. She's going to be the audience today. Oh, hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. So you got me all distracted and flustered. You got me all flustered now, Tawana. All right, so here's Futurecast. You can see the spotty areas of showers. I think really for Louisville, the chance is probably going to be more like a 3 to 6 p.m. window. We could get a few showers that may drop in from Indiana toward the Ohio River. They won't last very long, but yeah, you may find wet ground in some areas this afternoon. So beware of that. Now, that's important because the sky is clear tonight. Areas that do pick up any rain today will likely have at least fog to deal with, better potential for fog into areas of the Appalachians all the way into eastern Kentucky there. Once we get into your Wednesday, it's trying to show more of an easterly flow. Typically, we don't get a lot of rain from that, so I think the modeling is viewing that little spotty area of green as more as cumulus clouds, more so than an actual shower. I mean, I guess I can't rule it out because there will be some moisture around. Dew points are really not that low, to be honest with you guys. So while we're cutting down on the temperature, the humidity has been cut, no doubt. Dew points in the mid to upper 70s is crazy high, but we're still right around 60 for a dew point, which is still, you can feel that. You can feel that. It's not like a dew point of 48 where you're like, oh, this is amazing. Not to that level. That's really true autumn weather when you get to that level. But there is some moisture around, so I can't completely ignore that chance. But right now, I think the trend on that is to be more dry than anything. Maybe 1 or 2 degrees warmer tomorrow than we have today, but still way off the mark for where we should be. Again, fog, valley fog, river fog, that's the issue that we'll have as we head into later on into Thursday morning. And then there is another front toward the end of the week. This is the reason why the heat wave is not going to kick in until the end of the weekend or next week. This is the interruption in that process is the front, but it's moving into an environment that, again, is drier than what it had been. But as I just mentioned, there is some moisture around, so I don't think we can completely ignore the idea there could be a shower or two. Your better potential is up 71 as you travel towards Cincinnati and certainly into Ohio, and that tapers down, and I think the model is doing great. I think the idea of the green is fading as it goes along the front makes sense. The atmosphere is not exactly prime as it is up to the north. So we may account for just a brief shower chance that may move in, but you're probably going to miss this because you're probably in bed when this moves on by. But again, it will just delay the heat wave by another 24 or 48 hours before it then really starts to kick in. The jet, once again, begins to climb across the Ohio Valley, and that's when we get temperatures back into those 90s. The heat, I mean, it's going to be in some cases hotter into Canada than it will be here, to be honest with you. I mean, it's going to get up there. But notice that I have on here the tropical troubles for Texas and Louisiana. I do think that's something they need to watch. At the moment, I don't see anything that would actually curve right into the Ohio Valley based on where the high is located. It would likely go into Texas and perhaps even keep going west through Mexico. It's possible. But the Gulf of Mexico is very warm right now. So far the modeling is just struggling what to do with that, with a wave that will come into that environment. Will it just be fast and weak, or will it be a bit slower and just go crazy wild and become a hurricane? Good question. I don't think the model is going to get it right because it is an anomaly event. As I always try to stress, anomaly events, modeling just isn't going to capture it well. And given the idea that the Gulf of Mexico water temperature is way high, that's something the model is going to kind of mess up on. So we need to watch that down the road and see if anything can curve up our way as leftovers. But certainly if you have any travel plans to the Gulf over the next couple of weeks, I would keep an eye on the forecast trends. All right, so that's the pattern to get into the weekend. We're talking about mid-90s, by the way, that will start this weekend and go to about Wednesday or Thursday. And then the pattern probably will try to come back into a stormy one. You see that jet is up to the north and east. Well, there are signs the jet may try to move back down and dip back into the Ohio Valley, and we're back into the MCS, mesoscale convective systems, the storms, the big complexes. We're back in that zone again. Signs of that happening are starting to go up, and that would be about the end of next week. So this heat wave doesn't look like it's going to last very long, as they haven't so far this entire summer. But when it's here, it will be noticed, and it will certainly be felt there. And just take it easy, because our bodies are not fully used to this summer, because we haven't had them for very long. So there you go. That's the update in the long term. Everyone good? Let's see. Marianne. Oh, thanks for the comment there. You had a chance to get down to Western for your grandson. I know you were worried about those storms there, so I'm glad nothing took place there. So I'm glad, and go Hilltoppers. Beautiful weather in Kaminsky. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Appreciate that. You got a little more than 3/4 of an inch of rain. That's a good drink of water there. And NJ says, how about some snow? NJ, I love the way you think. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a second in the long term here. Well, maybe we will. There's no doubt. I think Devin said something about it a second ago. I saw a comment fly by. Everything's about El Nino. And you're like, El Nino, okay, what does that mean? Well, it's getting stronger. It's actually just one section of the Pacific Ocean that we're talking about. And it's technically called the 3.4 zone section of the Pacific, but that is where we are watching the waters that will continue to warm across the Pacific Ocean. They are getting up there. This may not seem like it would bother us being that far away, but it actually really messes up the entire weather pattern in a big way, because you end up changing how storm systems evolve across the Pacific and move across the United States, eventually in a little higher latitudes. Everything gets pushed a little more to the north. You end up with a ridge that develops, which we've had that all summer. It's right after the heat wave we had it come into play, but you cause a dip in the eastern United States, which causes a lot of wind shear, which typically will kill hurricanes and tropical systems near Florida and East Coast, which so far that has actually been the case. Everything seems to be lining up very well with a typical El Nino pattern that is at play. But how strong is it going to get as we head into the fall, and it's certainly for the upcoming winter season? Well, we have a chart, and this may be hard to read, so let me go full screen on this. This is from NOAA, and it charts where you have La Nina, which is the opposite of El Nino. That's in blue. That's a different jet stream pattern altogether. It's actually the cooling of that same zone I just showed you, and the red being El Nino. 0.5 is what we were looking at. You see the years. Now, this is just 2011 until now. But 0.5, either plus or minus on the 0.5 scale, that's where you start to count as a blue square or a red one. That's where it matters, all right? If you're not to that level for 3 consecutive months, it doesn't show up. What is interesting to me is the forecast right now, and I'll show you this, is to get to about a 2.2, 2.5 level potentially for the El Nino scale for the upcoming fall and winter season. The last time we were to that level was 2015 into 2016. That's the last time. We've done it before, 1997, I believe it was. But in recent times, 2015, sorry, I keep getting the wrong buttons. 2015 and 16 was when that level was hit. Well, what happened in September and October? I'll just choose 2 months right now for that setup. Well, it was a hot fall, autumn period for the Rockies. Temperatures were actually either near normal, barely above in our area, and below normal for the southeast corner of the country. This looks very familiar. The only thing that's off, I think, on this is the idea that the Northeast hasn't really been overly warm. And I would say they're really the same about the Great Lakes, the western side of the Great Lakes, perhaps. So that's the only difference that I've seen in this outlook that I think may be the play out here for the upcoming fall season. But this is the fall 2015 map. It really isn't too far away from the reality. When you look at the moisture, notice again, dry in the plains, but also keep an eye on the moisture across areas of Texas and in the Carolinas. I think that is significant because that is not typical thunderstorms popping up in the daytime period. I believe that it's tropics that is moving in the Texas area and then curving tropics of hurricanes into the Carolinas. That would indeed fit the pattern that I think is likely to happen for us as we head into the autumn season. What does that mean here? Well, if you get a tropical system that moves in across Texas and Louisiana, depending on how the high is arranged, sometimes they can work their way into the Ohio Valley and they can bring us beneficial rainfall. It's possible. This pattern may not allow it. It may allow them to keep going more west and fade out. They may not have a chance to curve. We'll see. And then you also have the ones that curve too far to the east of us, so we really do not get into the heavy rain zone. So that's the two signals that are showing up in 2015. I do think this may be a very similar map for this upcoming autumn season. And looking at El Nino again, this is the latest modeling. It's maybe hard to see the numbers. Let me show you full screen. You can see that it is forecast on the average in the middle line there to get into about a 2-point zone. Some of the modeling is trying to go a little higher to about a 2.5, but that would be a strong El Nino potentially. I don't know if it's going to get to record levels, but it may be one of the stronger ones that we have on file if indeed we get above that 2.0 mark for the upcoming fall season here into winter. So that is where we, I think, stand for the fall season. I looked at the hurricane maps, by the way. This is what they show. This is the hurricane season of 2015. Notice we had one system that moved into Texas. That one did curve right into the Ohio Valley. But we had several that formed and actually did miss the United States, which if you've been keeping up, the Hurricane Center is going with a pretty high number on season. I believe it's 20 named storms. I believe 20, wasn't that right? About 11 hurricanes, I believe, on the higher end. I mean, it's probably too high on the hurricane side, probably more like 7. Either way, we had 11 named storms in 2015. We've had 4 this year. We've only had 1 hurricane. It was Hurricane Dawn. Otherwise, we've had nothing but tropical storms in the area. So if NOAA is right and the hurricane season is really going to ramp up, I think it's going to be a lot of curving systems for the East Coast. And I think we're going to have 1 or 2 that are going to try to sneak in toward Texas and Louisiana. I just don't know yet if they're going to move in to the Ohio Valley. So sorry about that.
21 named storms.
21 named storms at about 11 hurricanes. Okay, which is pretty high. I mean, that's in the higher end of the numbers, by the way. So that would mean a rapid increase in the hurricane season coming our way. And that, too, could be a game changer for the Ohio Valley. Remember, hurricane season goes to November 30th. I got a feeling it's going to be a little later this year. So what does this all mean as a summary for us for the autumn season? I think we're going to continue with more of the same. There is a chance we may trend drier than normal for the fall, which we need to watch that. It's typically dry anyway in September, October. There are driest months here. So it's, when I say drier than normal, that's pretty dry. That means there may be a lot of days we have nothing going on, which I don't think anyone's going to complain about. But especially if the tropics ramp up, because anytime you get a tropical system that will move along Florida and the Carolinas, you have a lot of sinking air on the northwest side of where that track is. So if we have a lot of curving systems, that means Tennessee and Kentucky and Indiana will likely have a lot of sinking air, and as a result, therefore, mainly dry weather. They've got to really aim toward you to get rain. But if they're all curving, we will be in a spot where drier than normal, which is where that 2015 map showing drier than normal in our area, I think does come into play. That made sense. So we'll see if there's similarities. Temperatures, I think, as a result, will be warm. I don't know if they're going to get to anything extreme, but they may be just a warm, dry setup. And warm being a little above normal, which our normals, of course, drop into the 70s as we head throughout October, and then get into eventually the 60s by the time we head into later in November. We may be above the mark on that. So there you go. I don't have an official map drawn on this because I think you kind of get the idea on what we're looking at. But at least between now and September, I think it's going to be back into a stormy pattern after this heat wave. And then we'll just see what happens with the tropics. The tropics are absolutely going to be crucial. I can't stress enough how much these things are like machines. Let me show you. Let me turn off. Well, actually, let me just go global here. So ignore this map and how it looks. Because I'm kind of going on fly. Going off script. Be ready. Okay. Yeah, no, I don't do that too often. It's fun. I was excited. You've got tropical systems. Again, these are heat engines. Massive heat engines for the globe when they take place. But a lot of typhoons, I think, are going to develop in the Pacific. And why is that important for the typhoons, which is still a hurricane, by the way, just different name, is they tend to cause what we call a recurving theory. So about 7 days after they curve out of the Pacific and head into the higher latitudes into Alaska and Canada, they cause the jet stream to crash into the United States. If we end up having a recurving typhoon theory, which means a trough, a dip in the jet over the Ohio Valley, at the same time we have a hurricane, what will likely happen is you can get a cutoff low, or you may end up with a monster system for the northeast part of the country that could still drive in some wild weather just to our east. But either way, it's the Northeast, I think, as your winter nugget, I think is going to be one of the sweet spots for the winter. I think Boston, New York City, they better get ready because if this pattern is right, I think it's going to be wild for them. Don't know yet for the Ohio Valley. I'm working on it, guys. I'm working on it. I'm not going to give you too many hints on that just yet. But if El Nino is going off script, basically, and we have an unusual pattern. This is going to be a pattern that's unlike what we've had really since 2015 and 16. We did get some snow, by the way, that year, especially in central and southern Kentucky. But we also had some ice, too, that year. So it's not going to be, this is not going to be like the past few winters. We had La Nina the past couple of winters. So actually past 3 years, we've had La Nina. So this is a completely different pattern. And I think the fall, which was beautiful last year, I think this year can be beautiful, but I do think it is going to be a little unique on the idea of the tropics being more at play. All right. Does that help? Everyone good? See, Daniel, I want warm fall, no winter. Oh, come on, Daniel. I'll convince you at some point. All right. Devin, average their 60s in October outside the state. Thank you, Devin. Appreciate that. Yeah, I know it drops down. I can't always remember the range. We're like about 88, 89 right now, and then it has like a steep drop that happens after that. So we're going to get there sooner rather than later. All right. So there you go. I just want to do a quick long-term update. I haven't done that in a while. I think it's going to be wild. Again, I can't stress enough. The tropics will be the play on how this gets going. So we'll see how it works out. Until then, enjoy today and tomorrow and get ready for the heat that is coming our way as we head into next week. I'm already sweating thinking about it. Come on. Let's bring on winter sooner than later. It'll be here. Hang in there, guys.